Hey, welcome everyone to my continuation of what are my favorite theorems. Very biased collection. Very biased collection. What else could it be, as usual? I would like to tell you about one of Hilbert's problems. One of the, so Hilbert has this list of the problems. We're going to get there in a few slides. And yeah, well, this one was solved like immediately. Or actually, strictly speaking, it was already known when Hilbert posed the question. But kind of, well, it was like in the 19th century, 20th century thing. It was really difficult to figure out what is known. And yeah, this result was never really then published. And then so Hilbert wasn't aware of it and posted it as a question. But anyway, it brought something quite interesting, I think, which is like difficult to define, a bit difficult to define. I will not do it, but it's kind of really useful in practice. I'm not saying it's incomputable. Actually, any computer algebra system should be able to compute it. I'm just saying it's a bit tricky to define, so I won't do it. And the things I'm going to talk about are called the Dehn invariants, and named after a student of Hilbert's, Dehn, who solved it, during their thesis, like a year after Hilbert posed the question, something around, like very quickly after Hilbert posed the question. And it's kind of very nice. It's kind of a plane geometry type thing, plane in the sense of plane, so not in the sense of plane, but in the sense of planing. And it's about cutting polyhedra. So something the old Greeks could have done, but then someone never did. Anyway, so let's have a look. So what I mean by cutting polyhedra is kind of a game with playing with scissors. You have a polyhedra in any dimensions in principle, but I'm really only going to fix on dimension 2 and 3. So you cut one of them into pieces using the squiggles, you rearrange it into a new shape. So I cut here my little square, rearrange it into a triangle. I cut here the cube, or someone has cut the cube and rearranged it into a shape. I don't know what the shape is called. But anyway, into a shape. So we take two polyhedra, and let's say, otherwise the question is a bit strange, they have the same area, volume, whatever it is. And can you cut one and reassemble then the pieces so that you can go from one to the other? And the point, kind of the starting point for Hilbert was that in dimension 2, the answer is yes. And it was kind of known for a long time. So dimension 2, known for a long time. And to Hilbert, what about dimension 3? So Hilbert's third problem, Hilbert gives us a list of these 23 problems, very influential problems. Some of them are a bit ill-stated, whatever, but this one is pretty clearly stated, although the original formulation is more difficult to what I'm going to say, but it's somewhat equivalent. Let's say it's somewhat equivalent. It's not equivalent, but let's just say it's somewhat equivalent. I like this formulation a bit more. Anyway, so essentially the point is, can you cut the Platonic solids, our friend the Platonic solids, or similar type of polyhedron, kind of in the same way we did the cutting here in 2D? Can you do this in 3D? Can you always do this, right? So can you rearrange the cube into other Platonic solids? Imagine the same question for any type of polyhedron. Can you do that? And Hilbert was like, probably not. And yeah, the task was to prove that this is not true. And why was Hilbert interested in this question is really kind of key here. So why would you care? Huh? So not good answer to this. Why would you care would be like Hilbert said so. That's not a good answer. Hilbert could have said Gauss said so. I think Hilbert got the problem from Gauss, but it's still not a good answer. There should be some good motivation why we would like to look at this problem. Now, well, one motivation is it works in 2D. I mean, it's kind of what the old Greeks did. So might it work in 3D, but there's an even better motivation, which I'm using Gauss's words, maybe not quite Gauss's words. So if you look up Gauss's original gesammelte Werke, you will find this, but maybe not in this formulation. So no one likes calculus. As I said, that's probably not Gauss's formulation, so more like my reinterpretation of it. But essentially, what it boils down to is the following question. So in 2D geometry, what the old Greeks did, so usually you can derive all the standard formulas for whatever triangle, blah, 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 from one another by using some form of rearrangement of the things. So just plain geometry tricks. Right, so here you take the triangle, you cut off, you all know the formula for the triangle, but here's some way to prove it. You cut off the top, rearrange it into whatever type this shape is, and for this one, the area is well known, so you get one of the formulas from the other. And this works in 2D, and this works really well in 2D. And you probably have seen like a trillion different rearrangements type of arguments in 2D. So you might wonder, what about 3D? And this is kind of where the old Greeks kind of hit a wall. So all the standard formulas in 3D for those polyhedra, pyramid or whatever, tetrahedron or whatever, they're very quite nice. They're not bad, but to derive them is not like this picture here above, but it's more, you usually need some form of calculus arguments, form of analysis argument, Cavaleri's principle or something like that. So the old Greeks actually invented calculus, if you want, just to solve these types of questions. What is the volume of a pyramid? And this is kind of really interesting, because if there would be some nice proof of this, probably someone would have discovered it in the 3,000 years of John, right? So maybe there is no nice proof, or a nice proof in the sense it's kind of plain, kind of rearranging polyhedron type of proof for those questions, right? So if you, let me try again. So if you could rearrange the cube, which has a really easy volume formula, into a tetrahedron, you should be able to get a nice way to prove the volume formula for the tetrahedron. Nobody was able to do that for a long time. So Hilbert is then just, okay, that probably doesn't work. Can someone give me a proof that it doesn't work? And then you just do it in this reformulation of that you can rearrange and cut different pieces of polyhedron. So Hilbert's question is this impossible? Probably yes, but I don't quite know. So here I throw it out to you. I hope it makes some sense. I think this is a really good motivation. So essentially, why did the old Greeks get stuck? They had those really nice proofs. So Euclid has like trillions of them in the book, the Elements. Euclid, by the way, might probably, nobody knows, is probably not one person, but kind of a collection of authors. But anyway, let me just count Euclid as one person. So Euclid had those many different nights of rearranging proofs. And you wonder, does it work in 3D? Not really. Nobody really ever came. There are some, I'll show you one, but in general, not really. Nobody really ever came up with something. So the old Greeks invented calculus, but nobody likes calculus. So here we go. Dehn, then like 1 year, 2 years after, maybe even in the same year, depends a bit how you count, after Hilbert posed the problem, defined certain invariants, which are like annoying to write down, so I won't do this. Define on the space of all polyhedra. So there's an infinite dimensional vector space involved, a bit annoying to write them down. But anyway, the statement is pretty good. So the invariants are the same if and only if you can play this cut and paste argument, the cut and reassemble argument. Part of it is due to Dehn, part of it is due to someone else. But anyway, essentially, what it boils down to is then that you calculate the invariant of the cube is 0, and the invariant, for example, of the tetrahedron is not 0. So they're not the same. Here you go. You can't rearrange one into the other. In other words, this is now in quotation marks, but anyway, in other words, there is no nice way to get the volume formula for the tetrahedron. Okay. And you can do the same for the other platonic solids. There is also no nice formula for the dodecahedron or something. So Hilbert was right. Yeah, so this is pretty good. Up to the fact that I can't really, well, the video is somewhat too short to really explain what it is. The Dehn invariant is something on infinite dimensional vector space. You can compute it. It's not terrible, but it's kind of a little bit too much for this video. At least I felt it was a little bit too much. But it's computable invariant, which tells you exactly the answer to the question. And it's really an if and only if. So here I'll show you in a second a nice animation, which I'm not the author, it's just linked in the description. You can have a look. How to rearrange, for example, you can't rearrange a tetrahedron into a cube, but you can rearrange a tetrahedron and an octahedron into a cube. And it actually turns out that if you take the Dehn invariants, you get this linear combination of Dehn invariants. So twice the tetrahedron plus the octahedron is the cube. And so this, by the if and only if theorem, you should be able to rearrange one into the other. And yeah, let's have a look. So here's the animation I promised. It's Mathematica. And essentially what you see here is an octahedron in the middle and two tetrahedron on the outside. And if you just rearrange them a little bit, and this animation will just rearrange them for you, what you will get by putting them nicely together, I hope it's reasonably clear, are two cubes, which is a non-trivial result. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to tell you about the Dehn invariant, which is a computable. It's computable. Mathematica can compute it, for example, invariant that you can just associate to a polyhedron, and then they can check which polyhedron can be rearranged in what else polyhedron. For example, if you know a formula for area of one of them and formula for the, you want to know a formula for the area of the other, and they have the same Dehn, or they have the same Dehn invariant, then you can derive one of them from the other by kind of those easy geometry arguments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I also hope to see you next time.